almost kind of existential questions about what are we here for, because they're always having differences of opinion. They're always arguing, oh, this is all for just woke nonsense. It can supercharge a kind of narcissistic sort of worldview.
Well, on this week's episode of the Engaging Marketeer, I'm speaking to André Radmall. André is a therapist that has pivoted into a business coach, and he did that during 2020, where he also set up a podcast on pivoting, where he interviews people about how they pivoted from one career to another or one aspect of life to another. So I'll be speaking to André about how he uses his therapist training within business coaching and how he markets himself in this new business landscape. You're a fellow podcast host with your own podcast, in its season 2, I believe. Could you tell me a little bit about that and what prompted you to want to make that?
Yeah, so it's called the Pivot Points podcast, and it's on most platforms you'd expect podcasts to be on. It's called Pivot Points because I wanted to interview people who had been through some kind of change in their life, where normal life as they knew it just was upended by something and changed, and how did they get through it? And I started it actually round about the time of the pandemic.
When pivot was like the word of the pandemic, wasn't it?
Yeah, pivoting, and also around the whole kind of George Floyd kind of episode as well. And I did some interviews with people that kind of zoned in on that a little bit. But it really included a whole variety of people, actually, people in bands, some celebrities, some writers, some presenters, some business people as well. So it was really across the board. But I was fascinated by just the different ways that people dealt with upheaval in their lives and change, and including success. It was really fascinating that one person I spoke to, really their story was about how they were in the music industry. A chap called David Grant, who had a few hits in the 80s. And suddenly he was super successful, and of course his management and his supporters, people around him, just wanted more of the same. And it was really challenging, because how do you keep plugging that slot machine for the same thing to come out? It's quite difficult, but also you can kind of lose sight of who you are in all of that as well. So it was really looking at change, and as you say, there's a couple of seasons out there now.
Yeah, you just get wrapped up in the demand, can't you? And before you know it, you just feel burnout from that.
Yeah, and you start kind of almost doing what other people might want to do because it's success for you and them, and so everyone's kind of getting something from that format or that way of operating, but that's not necessarily good for people as a human being.
And in terms of the podcast itself, was that something that you started to help you with your own business, or was it completely a passion project on the side?
Yeah, I guess it was kind of a bit of both, really. It was certainly a passion project. I really enjoyed the whole interview process and just hearing people's stories, but it really fitted with my business as a coach, and also as a therapist as well. And I was kind of moving a bit more into coaching at that point as well. So I was very interested in how people construct their life stories and how those stories can be changed. And that's probably been my central interest all the way through coaching and therapy.
So you yourself were pivoting at the time then?
Yeah, kind of was. Yeah, I was. I was moving more into coaching world, and I think it was probably a little bit after I did the podcast that I started working with corporates more, with a company called Enola, and they were doing a lot of kind of work in the area of diversity, inclusion, and equity sort of training packages. So it was around about that time that I started getting really interested in how organizations tell their story, I suppose, and how they operate in healthy or unhealthy ways.
How do you mean unhealthy ways?
Well, I think that sometimes when, just for example, thinking about whether people feel they belong in any kind of group or workplace or organization.
Mm.
I think it seems pretty clear to me that if people don't feel they belong, if they feel they're just peripheral, they're not really needed, not really appreciated, then they're probably quite likely to disengage in the end and become less enthusiastic about what they're doing, really.
Mm.
So I think that's a simple word, I suppose, belonging, but actually quite powerful effects if people are not feeling it.
Mm. And I mean, how important do you think it is then for companies, for business owners to understand that their employees need to feel that they belong and need to feel engaged within the business?
Yeah, I think it's critical actually, because I think what it is it's the sort of secret sauce perhaps in business communities and systems is that those people working within it really feel this relates to their own passion, perhaps,
Mm.
or their own values and things that they really are interested in doing. So, and that they can bring their take on that to the table and have an audience. And it doesn't mean everyone gets to do everything they want to do all the time, because that would be kind of chaos.
Mm.
But at least there's a space there in a business where people can bring their ideas and their passions and their interests and kind of themselves really, and
Mm.
find a place of where they're heard and they belong.
Mm.
I think it's really important.
So it's more about being heard, you think, rather than anything else.
I do. I think people kind of instinctively know if they're not being listened to. Really,
Mm.
we've had a lot of corporate training, and I'm so aware of this as a therapist as well, which kind of trains people to look like they're listening, and they're not actually listening at all. So you
Yeah.
get a lot of the nodding and
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Tell me more. Tell me more.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Do
interesting.
do go on. Do go on. Yeah. That sort of.
Yeah, yeah. Thinking what you're having for lunch that day. It's just not
Yeah.
actually listening at all.
Yeah.
And I think people do know that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think listening is big.
And I know there's a lot of people in business who think that employees are typically motivated solely by money.
Mm,
So that the more they earn, the more they'll be motivated, and the more bonuses they get, the more they'll be motivated. But
mm.
it's not, is it? I mean, people are motivated by lots of different things, and some of the smallest, strangest little things, like just being told "well done" if they've done
Oh
something.
yeah. For some people, I'm one of these people actually. What there's this idea called it's a bit of a funny phrase really, but love languages. This idea that people respond in different ways in terms of being encouraged, and some people love words of encouragement. Just hearing words being said,
Mm.
I would be one of those. So being told "well done" is rocket fuel for that person. It might get them through the next week just on
Mm.
that. I think people do thrive on those simple things. Being called by your name, actually, weirdly, uh, when people have done studies on this, it seems that being seen, heard, and recognized and called by your name is quite powerful for
Mm.
people's sense of belonging and a
Mm.
sense of, oh, I have a place here. I'm seen, I'm recognized, respected. These things are, yeah, I think, yes, money is, of course, money's a factor, big factor in this, but if you have money without those things, I do wonder how long it becomes a satisfying place to work in.
Yeah. I think it's the case of that if you reward somebody with money, typically if they get a pay rise, they will essentially just spend that money up until the money they've got. Everybody lives to their means,
Mm,
so that reward
mm.
will only last for a month effectively before they're now living to those means, and that becomes the norm, and they don't feel rewarded or valued again.
Yeah, those underlying more maybe psychological, relational issues are just not being addressed at all. Then,
Mm.
so yeah, and money and spending and kind of acquiring nice things can probably cover that over for a while, but I'm not sure it would last long term.
Mm. So, as a therapist that's moved into coaching, that must give you a real advantage over other business coaches, surely.
Yeah, I guess what I see is And my training actually was systemic, so I was very focused on how people relate in systems, whether it's in families or businesses actually, or in smaller organizations. So I took that into coaching for sure, and I'm just really fascinated with how people tick. I suppose
Hmm.
I've always been interested in, like, why do we do the things we do, and half the time why are we doing these things we don't even know why are we doing this, and
Hmm.
what's driving us, and so yeah, I did pull all that across into coaching. But I think the thing that's perhaps different about coaching is that of course, it's not like it's not like this in therapy either. I'm not kind of giving people the answers or anything. It's just kind of maybe some tools for people to think about, operating in a different way or taking another approach to something that's got a bit stuck,
Hmm.
usually. And I suppose that's common in both.
Hmm. So how? I was going to say, I mean, you've sort of answered it there, but I was looking to get into more specifics. How has the therapy background helped you dealing
Mm.
with specific clients in terms of helping them get better within their business or scale their business, or however you're looking at helping them on a minutiae level?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question, I think, because I think sometimes coaching tries to go straight for the objectives and how to get to those objectives in quite a kind of ABC sort of way. And there's a place for sure. There's a place for that, especially when time is short. But I think in my experience, if people's feelings have to be taken into account as well. So yeah, if somebody is struggling with something in work or in their business or in a leadership capacity, I kind of there needs to be some space for that struggle to be heard, for that struggle to be articulated, for the feelings to be heard as well. I'm not a proponent of staying in the feelings all the time. I'm not a proponent of kind of digging down into the sort of unconscious too much. But I don't think it serves us to just ignore it either. I think it's really kind of important that people kind of get in touch with their emotional state. I suppose this fits with emotional intelligence, really, in order to be in a better place to move forward with whatever the task is or the objective is. Also, sometimes objectives that people set are really more like defensive reactions to things that are going on, which
Hmm.
might be like firefighting a problem that's going on in a team. So, for example, if you've got a team that aren't working together and are in conflict with each other, and I suppose I've seen this. The quick response to that is to just kind of disengage from each other and go into silos and not talk.
Hmm.
And that, yes, it solves the problem in the very short term, but in terms of productivity of that whole team going forward as a business, that's going to really undermine their effectiveness. So I think one of the ideas, which is a bit more of a coaching idea that I really like, is psychological safety. How you build environments where people feel actually it's okay to have differences of opinion. It's okay to even have conflict, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that person's integrity as a person has to be threatened and put under stress.
Hmm.
It's more about, like, what are we doing rather than who we are. There's a separation.
Hmm. That's almost like a counselling approach, really, isn't it? That if you,
I think it
because a
is, yeah.
business is like a relationship, whether you're doing it with your business partners or with your staff or with your boss or with your managers, there's give and take on both sides, and it's understandable that you're gonna have differences of opinion. And normally within a business, I say normally, a lot of the times within a business, people treat that as that's absolutely the wrong thing to do. How dare you have a different opinion with me? I'm telling you how this is going to be done, and this is how it should be done. But
Yeah,
people need to realise there will be differences of opinion, and that's not a bad thing. There's different ways to look at it.
I think so. And I actually think that there is a lot of creativity can come from that. I would say in the business sphere that the teams that are the most creative are probably the ones who are able to knock ideas around, have differences of opinion, argue
Mm.
their corner, yeah, promote their ideas, but able to listen to others as well. And I think that's not always the case. I think one of the clearest examples of that is a writer's room on a TV show.
I
So
was just thinking the exact same thing.
there
Actually,
you,
I was
yeah,
thinking of Monty Python. Yeah.
yeah. Monty Python or Friends would be another example, but a lot of the big shows these days, actually, either in the UK or in America, they'll have whole writing teams. Yes, they may have a showrunner who kind of leads it, but often when you look at the credits, it's they're not the ones who are always making the stories. There's lots of other people involved,
Yeah.
but they're having to work within, just like a business, within a framework, which is this is what we're here for, this is the objective, this is our value, and these are the things we're going to press into. And then once you get into the detail, all sorts of different ideas and voices can come into the mix. But I think for me, that's one of the best examples because they're always having differences of opinion. They're always arguing. They're always kind of working things out fast as well. But it's super creative.
Yeah, so I always remember, I think it was John Cleese interviewed about how they wrote
Mm.
the sketches for Monty Python and for the films as well. It was something on the lines of, we got together as a group to write it. If one of us hated the idea, we probably wouldn't do it. If two of us hated it, we definitely wouldn't do it. But it was rare that we all loved it, and there's certain scenes they all loved. So yeah, it's getting to know that not everybody is going to agree, but that's okay. It's that conglomerate, that working together, which gives you the best ideas.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's where creativity really lives as well, is in different minds, different ideas coming together and bouncing off each other and creating some third thing that wasn't there before. I think that's really creative. That's why I like working with teams actually, just to see how often people dismiss some of their real skills that they can bring to the table as well. They think, well, I'm not the funny one, or I'm not the, I don't know, I'm talking about sitcoms or something in this,
Yeah.
or I'm the whatever. But actually, people can move positions as well. They don't always have to be in the same role in a team. They can move around. I watched a documentary about the Beatles, which was the last few days running up to their rooftop concert. I think it's on. Anyway, I won't say where it is. It's online anyway, and it was amazing. They could all play each other's instruments. I didn't know that they could do that. So there's sort of scenes there where, like, Ringo Starr's playing the keyboards, or George is playing the keyboards, and
Yeah.
Paul's on the drums, and you think, okay, but that wasn't maybe their major thing that they did, but they were able to have that flexibility and kind of move position, which I actually think is also quite helpful in a creative team as well.
There's a famous quote from John Lennon where he was asked if Ringo Starr was the greatest drummer in the world, and he said, "He's not even the greatest drummer in the Beatles."
I know, I know. Yeah, Paul was a pretty good drummer, actually, I think. But it was just that flexibility, and nobody. I actually thought it was a very interesting film to watch if people want to watch it because it really shows how teamwork works. That there wasn't. Yes, of course, they would have had differences of opinion, but they really listened to each other. They really listened to each other, and if one of them had an idea, however half baked it was, they would listen to it and try and work with it with them.
So when you're working with businesses like this, do you ever encourage resistance from either the owners or middle management or employees to this?
Do I encourage resistance?
No, no. So do you encounter, not encourage? Do you encounter resistance?
Well, I think there's generally resistance in any system to change anyway. I think I think that it also might depend a bit on where in the business you're working as well, whether you're working with senior leaders, sort of, or people in middle management, for example. I think that the world looks a bit different depending on where you are in the structure. But I do think people generally are a little bit, and this is human nature, really, a bit resistant to things that are new or take them out of their comfort zone, perhaps. But I think it's a lot of this is really making the argument that taking these kind of approaches, it actually will affect the bottom line. At the end of the day, it will actually affect productivity and profit, actually, profit as well. So I think part of this kind of work coaching within the business sphere is certainly to be cognizant of the importance that the profit margin is in view, but leading right into that is productivity, and to me that's, well, how are people working together, how are people communicating, and then we're really back into that domain again of relationships and systems, human systems. But yeah, I think resistance is sometimes due to fear. I would say that fear is usually the cause of most resistance. What are people afraid of? They're going to be afraid that they're going to just look silly, that they're going to not be able to do it, or they're going to be embarrassed, or they may have, sometimes people might have a narrative, and of course I work with narratives, and the narrative may be, oh, this is all for just woke nonsense. I'm not saying that people have said this to me, but I think this sometimes is in the mix. More woke nonsense. Do we need to do this? Let's just get on with the real work. That can come up in people's, yeah, in terms of the whole system, I think. But I think, yeah, that's why it's quite important to be, without going too scientific on it, right and left brained at the same time, actually.
And I,
So, so we're kind of thinking about things in a very hard-nosed business kind of logical way,
yeah.
but also linking that to the more emotional, relational, emotional intelligence kind of domains as well. Because I think one without the other doesn't usually work so well.
And I imagine as well, in addition to the fact that we are all hardwired to resist change, it's just a human emotion.
Yeah.
There were obviously countless experiences throughout history where people have lost their jobs due to progression. So you have mechanical engineering and plants where robots came in and took over from humans, and mining was replaced. And now, of course, we've got AI. I imagine that you've worked with businesses where there is a serious fear that the more they accept change and they accept progression, that they're going to be doing themselves out of work in exchange for a simple AI script that can do the job of 30 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what that leads to very quickly is almost kind of existential questions about what are we here for? If we're not, if AI can do my job, what is it that I'm here for? So this can really hit hard into people's sense of who they are, their identity, their meaning. Actually, for people particularly who lean into work as their source of meaning, if they're confronting the possibility of that work not being there in a few years' time because AI is doing it, what does that mean about who they are as a human being? So that's a stress and potentially an opportunity for people as well to kind of go, well, okay, let's look at this from a human point of view, because I think the one thing, I mean, maybe this everything can change, of course it can, but the thing that is distinct from AI is that sense of human connection and empathy and those kind of emotional intelligence aspects. And so, I have heard some business leaders, when they're asked about AI, say, well, look, the thing is, we've got to really lean into what is it to be human being and what is it to work together with other human beings, because a lot of the data side of it is going to be taken care of in terms of AI. So we need to kind of major on almost the humanities, perhaps.
And of course,
But yeah, risk.
the real advantage with AI is it's not supposed to be there to replace people's jobs. It's supposed to be there to make things easier for you, to make you more efficient, to make you better at doing what you do, to save time, to do the mundane tasks that are repetitive, so that you can concentrate on the important stuff. Do you find a lot of businesses are adopting it properly for the way it should be without fear?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm across that enough to be able to answer that in terms of the whole global sort of piece. I would say my hunch, and it is only a hunch, is that businesses, particularly maybe big global businesses, are maybe not so much threatened by AI, but looking a bit like you're saying, probably to see how they can utilize it to actually dovetail into their work and make the work smarter. I certainly, at my sort of level, that's the way I would view AI as
Mm.
a really helpful assistant, helper in doing some of that kind of work that would take up time, energy, and actually probably would diminish my creativity because
Yeah.
I'd be doing that kind of grunt work. So I think it's actually quite releasing in that sense into the more creative
Yeah.
sphere.
Yeah, it's the repetitive stuff, the follow up stuff. So I'm like summarizing a meeting you've had and emailing it
Yeah.
to the client afterwards, or booking appointments into the calendar when they come through. It's all this stuff that we do takes time, but you don't need to be thinking to do it. And if you're not embracing it, and your competitor is, they're going to have more free time to do the creative, the marketing stuff that you haven't got, and you'll be left behind as a business.
Yeah, I think that's right, and they'll be utilizing AI probably in that marketing package in how they devise it and how they get to, I suppose, get to market quicker actually because they've actually gone through the route a lot faster. I think it's a collaboration. It's not an either or.
Of course, the other angle would be is what negative impact would AI have on a psychological front?
Mm,
Because if we're using AI like a person and we're
mm,
talking to it and it's talking to us, that's
mm.
got to have an impact on someone's mental health when they're speaking to something that isn't actually real.
Yeah, so there's been some cases of this where people have kind of fallen in love with their AI or got married to them or whatever. And there's been some cases where it's gone really quite deep.
Mm.
And you can kind of see how that could happen. I think also I'm aware that in the domain of therapy or counselling, there's certainly a move towards using AI as a tool to help people with some sort of like cognitive therapy and things like that, and maybe other forms of therapy too, actually. But what do I think of it? Well, I do think it's not the same as a human to human relationship, and I don't think it can replace a human to human relationship either. I don't think it has that level of empathy. I think AI can make the right noises, but it's not actually feeling it. It's
Mm.
it's learned to make the right noises. So AI might well in our conversation go, "Oh, that sounds really difficult. Tell me more."
Mm.
But behind it, there's nothing behind it in terms of the emotional empathy. And I think as human beings, we do need that. And I kind of think we know when it's not there. But it is a blurry area now because I think AI is so personable in those sorts of interactions that it can feel like a friend.
Mm. And it will, and I found this myself, it's a known phenomenon that it will talk you up. If you suggest, say, I've got an idea for a marketing campaign or I've got an idea for a book, AI will tell you how great that idea is. It will tell you what a cracking idea that is, and how you can do it and how it's going to be brilliant. So it's almost like it's a sycophantic friend or a toxic relationship that's just making you, setting you up for a fall. So it's the kind of thing that, if used in the wrong way, can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I think at its very, very worst, it can supercharge a kind of narcissistic sort of worldview.
Mm.
The danger of that is that then when you clash up against reality, you bump up against someone saying, no, that book idea is rubbish, actually.
Mm.
It's quite a long way to fall because maybe you've sort of really already taken off with all this encouragement
Yeah.
into thinking, well, this is the next bestseller. It'll be on the New York Times bestseller list next week. And then the first time you go to a publisher and they say, this is absolute rubbish, I don't want to touch it. That can be really difficult. And I think that's problematic.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I think I mean, that goes back to the previous point a bit too about working in teams and creativity and conflict, which is that I think we need that grit in the oyster to, make the pearl. I think we need that like difference. Too much of it, of course, and then we get into unhelpful conflict that means people will shut down to defend themselves. but a certain degree of it, and I think we to some extent have become a bit conflict adverse, perhaps in our sort of postmodern society. And what that means is that we can easily, and of course this can be supercharged by not just AI but social media as well, fall into silos where we only talk to people that agree with us,
Echo chamber.
echo chambers. And yeah, I mean, I guess that feels quite good. It could be quite encouraging, but it doesn't really promote debate. It doesn't really promote dialogue, and I think it's dialogue that we need in order to, yeah, create new solutions, I suppose. Because otherwise, we sort of simply go around the same track over and over.
Yeah, it just creates confirmation bias, doesn't it? It's like
Oh yeah,
if you have an idea that you think, oh, I think this is a good idea, you'll Google for things that will back up that that's a good idea, and sure enough, you'll find it because there's always going to be stuff that's going to back that up. Even if it's factually incorrect, you'll find stuff online that will back you up. So you're getting confirmation bias. It's learning to ask the right questions so that you're not phrasing it in such a way that AI says, oh, he wants me to tell him this is a great idea, so I'm going to tell him this is a great idea, because that's just disastrous.
yeah, yeah. I think it's asking the questions, and I think it's also holding a space. I'm getting a bit psychological here, I think, but it's holding a space where we can cope with, and this probably is resilience, not hearing what we want or hearing something maybe that we find a bit uncomfortable coming back at us. So yes, I think it's asking the question, but it's also being prepared to hear an honest answer as well. And that's not easy to do when if we're living in a bit of a bubble the rest of the time, which is sort of super, encouraging and positive, good as that may be. I guess I'm arguing for these safe spaces to be there as well, where we can have a bit of a difference of point of view.
In terms of your business, now that you've pivoted from therapy into business coach, how do you find marketing that as a business? Because it's a very different audience. It's a very different type of client.
Yeah.
How have you approached clients or promoted yourself in the new stream that you've got going?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's kind of something I'm working with at the moment as well. I mean, I still do a little bit of therapy work, and I'm still kind of open to that. But I have, broadly speaking, pivoted. So, as I say, some of my work has come in through working with an organisation, with a consultancy, and so that's the usual thing of work comes in, and then I deliver on that work. But yeah, increasingly and recently and right now, I'm looking to kind of promote myself more. I personally don't find that very easy to do, if I'm honest. I
Yeah.
think it's difficult. I don't know if it's just me. I think content creators and coaches sometimes do find it a bit difficult to market themselves. And I think I do. I'm quite good at doing the delivery. I'm quite good at doing the content. Marketing feels like another thing. I have had PRs working with me in the past, so I've had quite a lot of visibility in terms of, for example, being quoted in articles in the press or getting onto the radio or such and such. But when it comes to business, finding clients, I do find that a bit more difficult. So I don't think I've got the whole answer to that question, really. It's something I'm kind of grappling with at the moment. But I think over the course of my work, I've done I've done workshops, and I've done little short courses, and I'm looking to do some webinars in the summer actually as well. So all of these things increasingly acting as a funnel with fees attached to bring in business. Yeah.
There's a number of challenges that business coaches typically face when marketing themselves. One of them is a lot of business coaches don't like to call themselves business coaches. So they'll have different terminology. Some of them really hate the term business coach, which from a search perspective is bad because your target client is looking for a business coach. And if you're not using that as a phrase, as a name, it makes it difficult. Another angle is that a lot of business coaches who they work with is confidential. So you can't then give examples of, I work with XYZ company. They were struggling with this problem in their business, and then afterwards they solved this problem and increased their turnover by X amount, because they don't want to tell anybody that they were struggling with their business. So you got difficulty from that level as well.
Yeah.
Do you have, does this sound familiar to you? I think judging by your nodding, it does.
Yeah. And of course, that I'm very familiar with the confidentiality issue. Certainly, that's absolutely true from a therapy point of view. And I think in terms of coaching in businesses, because the reason they're bringing you in is because there's something that needs addressing that they wouldn't, necessarily want to have all over the media.
And they wouldn't even like to give a word of mouth recommendation to one of their other businesses or suppliers or clients. Like, oh, we were struggling with our business, but Andre helped us out, because they'll never admit that. That's the problem.
No. I mean, I do. On my website, I do refer to people that I've worked with or been on, like the BBC. I've been on the BBC a few times, but you can't really go any further into it because of exactly those reasons. Because then it is a confidentiality issue, really. But you're right. Then how do you prove that you're good, or you're selling something that's really worthwhile? That is certainly a challenge.
Well, the podcast is a big step. So you've got that. So that's out there promoting you, and you're using that to surreptitiously, subtly, and skillfully weaving what you do with the people you're speaking to. How much are you doing on, for example, LinkedIn in terms of video, in terms of advice on a regular basis, or even on TikTok?
Yeah, so I'm starting on LinkedIn to do that. I kind of goes in waves. So it was a couple of years ago, I had a book out, still out, which really kind of is in this area as well, which is called Get Unstuck, and it's really about how if we change our narratives, we can change our lives. So although that would definitely relate to business, it would also relate to individual kind of life coaching, I suppose, as well. And I'm just coming back into that phase again of even taking things from the book that have to some extent been out there, but kind of using that as content, and with some of my newer sort of ideas. And speaking to camera, I quite like doing that, but I'm just getting going with that now on things like LinkedIn.
So you've not done it much then in terms of actually creating a content schedule and saying, right, I'm going to do that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And
No, I haven't. Not on those sorts of platforms. No. I've done that kind of. So I've done quite a bit of writing, as I say, for like magazines, media, newspapers, and so forth. But in my experience, that's not what really brings work in. It kind of just raises profile.
It's credibility, isn't it?
Credibility, and I can refer back to it as well now. I've been in the Independent and the Metro and yada, those sorts of things. But in and of itself, that's not a work generator necessarily.
So one thing I would recommend doing would be to create a schedule for what you're going to do in terms of social media, because all of your target clients are going to be on LinkedIn. And a lot of people dismiss TikTok because they think, it's just kids dancing. But TikTok has got one of the scariously most accurate algorithms you're ever going to see on a social media platform. So if whatever you are interested in, TikTok will learn it very quickly, and it will give you the content that's relevant to you. So from a coaching perspective, if you're creating a talking head to camera video, you want to be using it on TikTok, and you want to be using it on LinkedIn, and you should be using it on YouTube Shorts as well, because YouTube Shorts has got a massive reach. And if you do that on a regular basis, I'm talking maybe 3 times a week, and you don't have to record them 3 times a week. You can do the whole lot in half a day. Just break. I mean, you said you're going to do a webinar, and you've done talks, you've done keynote talks, you've done training. You can break all of that down into maybe 15, 20, 30 videos, all maybe 2 minutes length each, and schedule those to go out for the next 2 to 3 months. And that's the ideal way to funnel people back into your business. You mentioned you've got the book as well. Are you using that to promote people? To promote yourself?
Well, that's what I would start from. Really, I'd
Mm.
begin with kind of promoting from the book, because that's probably my unique selling point as well,
Mm.
which is that I'm interested in kind of the narratives that people get stuck in often, actually,
Yeah.
in organisations, and but also individually as well.
Mm.
That's also quite a strong therapeutic
Mm.
idea, but in
But
this
but do you,
instance,
but do you, oop, I just hit something. But do you use the book? I mean, do you use the book as a lead generator for potential clients?
I don't think I've used it as much as I could. That's for
Mm.
certain. How would you do that?
Well, a common way would be from each one of the videos that you would record, you would
Mm,
have some sort of call to action at the end. So it could be, for example, I've written a book on this. This is going to help you with this. Download a free copy from here. And then you
mm,
create a landing page where they can download a PDF of the book. And the landing page could also have the buy link maybe for Amazon if it's on Amazon, so that they can buy it from
yeah.
there if they want a paper copy. When people come into your funnel and maybe you have a sales call with them or a consultation call or whatever it may be, you could then send them a copy of the book afterwards, a physical copy,
Mm,
so that they have that. That's something we do with clients here. So we've got a book that we wrote. It's on Amazon. It retails for about £2 because Amazon are selling it really, really cheap. It's actually cheaper for us to buy it from Amazon and send it directly to the client than it is to get it from the publisher. Weird. But we will then get that and send that to the client once they've signed up for a website, for example. So it's used as a marketing tool to get them onto other services. So loads of people have books, but
mm,
it's what do they do with them? Most people just make the book, it's on Amazon, and that's it. And they think it's going to sell and drive people into them, but it won't. Most people will find that it won't. You need to use it. You need to physically use it as a tool. So if you run a webinar, everyone that signs up for a webinar, you send them a free copy of the book. If you run a face-to-face workshop, you give out copies of the book at the workshop. Factor it into the price of the workshop if you want to do it that way.
yeah, yeah. And presumably it can be automated as well. I'm thinking when
Mm.
people want to kind of book in a consultation, to try out, what would this be like to talk to Andre? That's all very automatable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing could be set up using a landing page and Calendly, and the digital copy of the book can go out using something like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or Go High Level or ClickFunnels, whatever you use for that. They could have a video consultation with you, which is pre-recorded, or it could go Calendly directly into your calendar for a one-to-one consultation. They're always better because you've got a better chance of
Yeah,
signing up a
convert.
client if you do that than do a video. It's much higher conversion, but then of course it depends on your time.
Mm, mm, mm. So would you put, I'm asking you the questions now,
I know.
but would you put a call to action in all kind of the video content kind of stuff, or would
That's
that be occasionally?
Yes, I would, but not necessarily the same type of call to action. So, from our perspective, for example, we wouldn't put in a call to action of book a consultation with us at the end of every video because it's too salesy, it's too much in your face. But the call to action could be as simple as asking a question in the video or asking a question in the post that solicits comments. So, what would your opinion be on this problem within a business? Or what would you do to solve this problem and get people to engage that way? That's a call to action. So your call to action to sign up or your call to action to book a consultation, that might be one every 3 or every 4 videos.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's certainly where I'm at the moment. Is this? Yeah, just finding the audience, the clients to
Mm.
to come in for coaching, and that could also be groups or organizations, and it could be businesses as well, not just individuals.
Or to go into a business and work with all of their team, you mean, on that front?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, um, exactly that. Yes, that's certainly doable from my point of view.
Mm.
Um, I am interested in teams, particularly. I'm interested in leadership as well, and how kind of leadership operates, because it feels to me like a very interpersonal skill, leadership. Um, so yeah,
Absolutely. There's so many people run businesses have no idea on leadership because there's a huge difference between being a boss and being a leader.
mm,
And very few people take the training or, I mean, there are some people who are born with it. that's very rare. That's very rare. Often you'll end up running a business because that's the business you started and you're good at doing that. You then grow it and employ staff, and you've got no idea how to manage staff. You've got no idea how to lead and inspire people. You just think, oh, I'll shout at them and tell them this is what I want them to do and that's going to work for me. And it doesn't. And they don't take the training. They don't take any sort of consultation on how to do this. And ultimately it fails. There are very few good leaders and there are very few people who are trained at leaders. So if that's something that you work with, helping people become leaders, helping bosses become leaders, that's a great avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I've already spotted this, particularly in founders, when you get one or two friends who get together and they found a business.
Yeah.
And it's all great when it's small and it's exciting, and then they blow up. It just becomes huge, or they're really successful. And when success comes and they're having to hire other people, it can really be challenging, because now it's not just a few mates. It's like, oh, we've got different departments here. We've got different people to manage. How do we do this? That transition into sort of scaling up, I think, from leadership point of view is tough.
I found a lot over the years that people who set up businesses together with friends, often they have the same skills, and that's a problem. Yeah. So I've seen so many web design agencies that have set up with two friends who are web designers, and they both love making websites. They're both good at making websites, but neither of them is particularly good at the procedures or the processes or the administration or the client follow-up or the networking or the sales. The sales, they're rubbish at the sales, or the accounting. They just want to make websites, and it never works. They need those complementary skills, and so few people have that when they set up businesses like that.
Yeah, and as you say, the challenge seems to often be how to communicate as a leader rather than just somebody who expects people to fall into your skill set. When your skill set's not enough anyway. You need the other skill sets. But how do you manage them when it's outside your own bubble that you've been operating in? I think that's really challenging.
So it's helping founders become leaders.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I'm going to write that down.
Helping founders become leaders.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the title of your webinar.
That's great, isn't it? Yeah.
I'll expect to see it launched, and I'll be on it. I look forward to that.
Yeah. No, I think that is so common. I see that in the creative field as well. People get really excited about a project, and then they move into production or something, but they've no idea about how the money works.
No. It's because we just love doing the do. We love building websites or building apps or creating art projects, whatever it may be. But yeah, the money, the systems, the admin, the sales, useless.
Yeah. And I think that's people skills in all of that, because you could even have those people in place. And this is what we find with diversity training, actually. You could have diversity, you could have the accountant, you could have the marketeer, you could have them all there. But if you don't know how to actually include them and cause that to be a team that's moving in a particular direction with vision, it's just going to fall apart. It's going to fall into silos again.
It's kind of like being a football manager. You need to recruit the right people.
Yes.
Because if you recruit the wrong people, it's going to be disastrous. And one bad apple can ruin everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that thing of how do people complement in a team rather than just the star player.
It's like if you're really into football, it's like Newcastle United back in the 90s when they were so close to winning the Premier League. They brought in Faustino Asprilla, who was a world-class player, but it just didn't complement the team.
Yeah.
And they fell off and they lost to United.
Yeah.
No one could have seen that coming, because what a player he was.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm of an age. I remember Arsene Wenger, and I come from that part of London, which was very Arsenal as well. And he was. I mean, he was very cerebral about it, perhaps, but he certainly thought about how everybody complemented each other.
Yeah. Well, there's loads of memes about Arsene Wenger still going now. That a player that he signed as a junior and put out on loan, and like 20 years later scored a goal which knocked Tottenham out, and it's like Arsene Wenger, 4D chess, he saw that, he planned it.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be crediting him with too much. Yeah.
It's funny though. It's funny.
It is. It's the sort of thing the stories we tell, isn't it? The stories we tell about people.
Mm.
Uh, um, but yeah, I am interested in that whole area. Yeah, how do founders become leaders? That's a good
Mm.
strapline.
So in terms of running a webinar, then that's a good thing for business coaches to do. I've seen a lot of coaches that do that, but it's what you do with them after you get them on the webinar,
Yeah,
how you get them to convert, what's the call to action at the end. So depending on the type of client or the type of business you would have on the webinar would depend on what you want to do with them. So often it would be you would book them onto a face-to-face consultation afterwards, which you could advertise as like a free consultation call.
mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the way I would envisage it going is in the first webinar that I do will be quite a lot of individuals, probably maybe some people from companies and from
Mm.
organizations or representing them, but I think it'd be individual conversations, I would imagine, that would kind of ensue from that, that
Yeah.
then might lead into doing work with organizations subsequently, perhaps.
Mm.
But yeah, again, call to action, as you say. Yeah,
And again,
yeah, that's good.
all of that can be automated as well, of course, in terms of the process for what it is. So at the end of the webinar, you want to give somebody a landing page that they go to, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them to get to it. So you'd either share the link they can click on, or you would use something like Bitly or Tiny URL so that they can see it and click on it. Because if you give them mybusinessconsultingwebsite.com/go here, they're not going to do it. So short as possible for them to go through, and then Calendly or something similar. And Calendly's free if you've just got the one calendar you're linking to, and they book in through that way. Go straight into your calendar, goes into there, sends them confirmation sequence. That then goes into something like ActiveCampaign or MailChimp, and then has a follow-up sequence as well to warm them up.
Mm.
Because just because somebody's signed up for it doesn't mean they're going to turn up. Equally, just because someone signed up for your webinar doesn't mean they're going to turn up. Typically, I found the show up rate from sign ups to showing up to a webinar is about 34%.
Mm.
But you want to keep contacting them with emails. Once they sign up for the webinar, contact them to make sure they get communication from you and they're more likely to show up. You can also use automations like, say, MailChimp or ActiveCampaign to send them text messages to remind them. So Calendly does that, for example, sends text messages.
And would you just picking brains a bit here? Would you charge for an initial webinar? Would you make that a free kind of entry point and then follow up with?
You can do it either way, to be honest with you. I've seen most people typically would do a webinar free because you want the most people on it.
I
Yeah,
thought, yeah,
because until they've encountered you on a professional level, which a webinar would be, they don't know who you are. So they need to experience your expertise, get the benefit of what you can offer them and what you can give them before they're going to part with cash for it. So I typically would do it like that.
yeah. I think the other beauty of that kind of approach is, I can foresee doing different webinars on very specific, discrete topics as well. Separate.
100%. Yeah, the more niche you can make it, the better.
Yeah,
Yeah, the more niche. So dealing with AI within your business or dealing with employees having relationships within your business, the more specific it is, the more tailored you can do the follow-up and or the course, the consultation you're going to sell afterwards, the more it's likely to work. Whereas if it was just grow and scale your business, every bugger's done that. So
yeah,
it's not going to work that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm thinking one webinar, one topic, one focus, followed up by something like maybe a short course or something, and individual consultation. Yeah,
Sounds like a plan to me.
sounds good. Yeah, thank you for keeping your brains a bit there. But it may be helpful for other people to hear as well.
I'm sure it will, yeah, because I mean this is a tried and tested method. It works superbly well. I mean, we've used it ourselves. So yeah, definitely works. So would you believe we are pretty much out of time?
Yeah, amazing.
I
That's
know.
been gone like a flash.
So for anyone listening to this is thinking, I love the sound of this, I'd love to learn more, I'd love to find out more about this webinar you're going to run, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, so people can get me. My website's at andreradmall.com. That's all one word, Andre, and then radmall.com. And I'm also on Instagram, André Radmall, and LinkedIn the same, and Facebook the same. So you can reach me through those channels.
Excellent. I will put the links for all of those, for the Instagram, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, and the website below the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Audible, it'll be in the show notes below the podcast. So you can go down there, click on any of those, and get in touch with André straight away. André, thank you very much for being a guest on the Engaging Marketeer.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.